The last 2 weeks, we've been looking at making sure that we understand each stage of our learning process in our photography and the choices that we get to make. Week one, we were looking at what angle we're using, what kind of lighting we want, depending on where we're stood. And it was very much about how we read the scene and which scene aspects we need to make sure that we're making conscious choices. Week two, then we looked at making those decisions with our camera. So we looked at aperture, we looked at depth of field, we looked at shutter speed. We were making sure that we got the right metering while making sure that we don't make the classic mistakes. But obviously, once we've taken our shot, the journey is not over and we need to take our next step. But before we start digging into our editing style, we need to make sure that we understand what we're looking at. More importantly, why they don't always look as good as we expect them to, considering we put more effort in. Now, when it comes to shooting straight out of camera, you need to take into consideration that most DSLRs will take that moment of not doing that edit for you. So if it's not in between JPEG and RAW, is if it's in JPEG, they've done the editing for you. They've added saturation. They've sorted out a bit of colouring for you. They've made sure the exposure is adjusted a little bit, okay? And they've tweaked those things in camera. But sometimes we're like, oi, I don't want you to do that. Stop doing that. I'm after a darker moody and you've just upped the exposure, which is why we shoot in RAW, enabling us to, again, make conscious choices towards the story that we're trying to tell. Obviously, there is a place for JPEGs if you don't want to edit. And yes, I am a firm believer of using JPEGs, especially when it comes to kids taking their own shots when they don't want to then take the time to doing those other things. So yes, there is a time and a place for it. Absolutely no issue with using JPEGs whatsoever. But sometimes you get to make that conscious choice of doing a RAW or having both. So the biggest thing I would say to you is turn on your histogram, okay? And if you know how to play with your Instagram, especially in an editing software, then you need to go make sure you check out this video. Just having that simple visual can tell you the edits that you need to make in order to make it have the impact that you're looking for. So for those of you who've already taken the 7 steps to editing, then you'll know that there are certain things that we check every single time. White balance, our ratio. We're going to make sure that we're checking out our exposure, so sorting out your shadows, your highlights, your whites, your blacks, before we even touch that slider of the exposure to make sure that the balance is correct first. And then obviously we'll add the details, so sharpening, clarity, textures, and all of those wonderful things. But today I want to discuss the impact of the colour grading, and in particular, maybe even the absence of colour, i.e. black and white. Obviously, if you want to have a more in-depth discussion about editing and the joys of editing, or more importantly, your questions, make sure you put them down in the comments below. There are various different editing styles that we can do for a single mug, okay? Yeah, we're carrying on with the mugs. We've taken the shots. We're now going to do something with them. And for the interest of this particular one, I thought it'd be very interesting if I just took a fairly, I don't want to say mundane, but an everyday shot of a mug and be able to add some artistic flair to it. So we're going to take one photo out of the ones we've taken so far, and we're going to be applying different edits to it to see which one matches the importance that we're looking for. So I'm going to start with that dynamic black and white. And when we think about a black and white photo, it really is about looking for those high contrast lighting situations. Looking for the silhouettes, the textures, the surfaces. It's all about removing the distraction that could come from those things and being able to make a more emotional impact on the viewer. So we're going to convert it to grayscale. We're going to add some contrast. We're going to make sure that we are emphasizing those shadows and highlights. And we're going to be adding that clarity for that sharpness. Or you could add grain for a more vintage vibe. Alternatively, we could be going for that warm and cozy approach, making sure that we've got that soft, warm light that invokes that kind of nostalgic feeling to the viewer. This is great for obviously those autumn vibes, for those cozy moments indoors. And the idea is that we increase that warmth, we soften the shadows, we add a vignette to draw the eye, and we bring out those warmer hues. And finally, my personal preference on this one is if you're looking for that winter crispness, then obviously we're going to look for a cool light source. Absolutely perfect for those prominent overcast days that I get so frequently here. We're going to increase that overall exposure, making sure that our brightness is slightly higher than we necessarily would start with. We're going to be bringing up those whites. We're going to make sure that we're not clipping, get that highlight warning on, and bring an overall sort of blue tone when moving that temperature. We're going to reduce the vibrancy, and we're going to enhance the white to give that minimalistic vibe. And we're going to obviously add a little bit of clarity and texture to emphasize the details. This is great for kind of invoking that atmospheric, magical vibes. Cozy can work really, really well in a crisp floral situation because it's a magical atmosphere outside, but the coziness was obviously within the mug. And if you're still not happy with it, you could take the fourth option of actually doing a composite on it if you wanted to replace that sky for something slightly more energetic. If you're going to do a composite, you need to make sure it meets the overall vibe. So you need to be reading the light. You need to make sure that you've got a clear point where you can do that transition of the separate areas and making sure that they match. Otherwise, you're going to get that vibe that it just goes, it doesn't feel right, but I don't know why. And the chances are your light source is coming from different points and it shows the disconnect. The whole point of this is that you can experiment with different editing styles and you can kind of start to find a general rhythm within your editing, which will then become your editing style. This is absolutely brilliant if you're working on your portfolio or you just want to get a level of consistency because it enables you to do a similar style with multiple different setups, enabling you to learn as you go. So whether you're looking for that bold black and white or you're wrapping your shots in warmth or embracing that frosty elegance, taking the time to experiment with the different styles, which is the whole point of this task. So which did you like best? Was the one that you thought suited this particular shot better than the others? Drop your comments down below because I would love to hear from you. At the end of the day, art is subjective and the feedback is one of your best friends. Now, obviously, I'm going to stand here and criticise the idea of going to social media for criticism and feedback because they have a habit of just putting likes down without actually saying what they liked or why they liked it or what they would particularly change to make it even better. You get very polarising opinions on social media. But one of the biggest things to do when it comes to photography is being able to make sure that you can self-critique your own work. And being able to ask yourself those critical questions of what is the story or emotion you're trying to portray? What is the composition and lighting, and does it contribute to that or does it distract from that? And finally, is the focus enhancing or distracting? Is it helping you along your journey or is it actually making things a little bit more too complicated? Obviously, if this helped you in any way, please hit that like button because it really does help me in return. And maybe I'll come back and do even more of these. Obviously, if you're not subscribed, because apparently many of you aren't, then hit that subscribe button. And for those of you who simply look at a photo and go, I don't know why it's good or bad, then I would say that that's exactly why I'm here. And we are running a wonderful special offer this month because it's January. And if you're anything like the rest of us, the economy is pretty crap. We are offering a pay what you can situation for this month only to enable you to be able to get the coaching you need without necessarily the price tag that goes. There are two options you have if you can't afford to spend a little bit extra on art. Is you can obviously hit me up in my Discord, which is in the description down below, or you can hit me up with Pick My Brain sessions, which are ridiculously cheap at the moment. It just basically gives you an offer hour to drop me an email in a form, and it enables you to ask any questions, whether it's to do with lighting, gear, send me a photo and say, what do you think of it and why do you think that? And I will respond to you in my next lot of office hours. Yes, I have office hours for Pick My Brain sessions because it's the only way I get things done. And for those of you who are looking to take advantage of the January spirit of New Year's resolutions, we also have a creative coaching program which enables you to learn with me one-on-one. And as an ex-teacher, I write a whole program based on your personality and how is best for you to learn. So it doesn't matter who you are or how you learn. I have pretty much a system for you. And if you want to know any details about that, then obviously you can comment down below and I'm more than happy to have a conversation with you. The biggest thing I will say is by combining that self-reflection, expert guidance in the comments below, and some wonderful, deliberate, conscious decisions in your practicing, you should be able to be taking your photos to the next level. You should be able to explain why this works, why it didn't work, rather than just going, I like this one, which is where we all start. So concentrate on growth over likes, because photography is more about your vision and less about what the algorithm approves. Till next time, happy clicking.